Okay, learners, welcome to the class. Welcome to the class. All right, today we are going to look at natural sciences, and our topic is what impact of technology processing. Okay, so my details are on the screen now. All right, so we're going to look at our lesson objectives. By the end of the lesson, we should be able to state the technological products that have a positive impact on society. We should also be able to state technological products that have a negative impact on society. And then we should be able to investigate how different materials can be processed to enhance these properties for specific uses. Okay. All right. Now let's look at processing. Since earliest times, human beings use different materials to make what? Artifact. Artifact simply means objects. Okay. Clothes were made, in those days, clothes were made of animal skins. Hammers were made of sticks and stones. Over the ages or over the years, people learned how to process materials to fulfill certain needs. Bones and stones were sharpened against rough surfaces to make knives and needles. Textiles were woven from wool, meaning we were getting the shirts we are wearing from wool. But the development of technology created thousands of processing possibilities. An example is nylon, which was one of the first synthetic textiles, which today has countless uses. So what it means is that when our ancestors or great grandfather people, what they were doing, they got their tools from their environment. But as technology started improving, the first one that was uh, made was what? A nylon. Okay. We are going to investigate different materials and how it can be processed to enhance its properties or to adapt it for what? Specific uses. Now, let's look at materials. Materials can be classified into two. We have got natural or man-made. So one is natural material. We can have materials that are natural. We can also have materials that are man-made or are artificial. Okay, natural materials come from plants, animals, and minerals. Okay, let's look at the next slide. All right. One of the most important questions that we should be asked before a product can be made is what material will be used. Materials are chosen based on their what? Properties and the purpose for which the product will be used. You would, for example, not use paper to make an umbrella, since an umbrella must be water resistant. Okay, so what it means is that we are talking about materials, and we are saying we have got two types of materials. We have got natural, and then we have got what? Man-made. Now, what are we talking about here? So all these materials, they are processed. Now, if we want to use a certain material, we have to look at the properties of that material. So as you can see in this example, if I'm going to design an umbrella, I will have to take something that is water resistant, so I cannot use a paper. Okay, so when we are going to look for a material for a certain purpose, then we must look at the properties. So we are now going to check the properties of what material. You might have already encountered properties of materials in grade 7 natural science or even in technology class. Okay, so one property of a material is stiffness. Stiffness. What is stiffness? Stiffness simply talks about how little distortion or deflection occurs when placed under pressure. Okay, there are some objects when you exert pressure on it or energy on it, it will not change its shape. That it means it's very stiff. But we have got other materials such that when we exert a small pressure or pressure, you see the shape is beginning to change, meaning the material is what? Not stiff. Now let's look at another property, hardness. And what is hardness? Hardness is simply the ability to withstand being scratched, cut, or dented. So if an object is hard, you cannot scratch it, you cannot cut it, or you cannot even dent it. Dent it is to change a shape or change the shape a bit. Now let's look at bristleness. When material fractures with little or no deformation, bristleness. When material fractures with little or no deformation. It means the material can change, can be damaged, but it cannot be deformed completely. All right, now let's look at toughness. When we say a material is very tough, it must be what? It must be able to resist impact, resistance to impact. Okay, let's look at ductility. When we say a material is having the property of being ductile, then it allows a material to be elongated or stretched without breaking it. So ductility is simply talking about the tendency of a material to be stretched or elongated without breaking it. Now let's look at elasticity. Elasticity. Some materials are elastic, others are not, are inelastic. So what is elasticity? Elasticity means we can stretch out, an object can be stretched out of its shape, but it will return to its original shape. So for example, if I have a rubber band, then I pull it to some limit. If I want it can go back. So that is elastic. It means the rubber band is elastic. Now let's look at flexibility. Flexibility, when a material is able to bend easily and does not crack, we say the material is said to be flexible. Now let's look at plasticity. Plasticity. After pressing or squashing a material, the shape changes permanently. We call it plasticity. Yeah, so a typical example is this thing that they use. There is a black substance that people they use to mend the tube of a tie. That black substance is called plasticine. So if you have mostly we have what tubeless ties and we have got tube ties. So the tube ties, if it is damaged, you can use a plastic to mend that small hole that is created. Okay, so these are just some few properties of materials. Okay, let's go on. We are looking at the properties of material being continued here. What do we mean by absorbent? Materials that can suck up water is absorbent. For example, a cushion. A cushion, you can use a cushion or other objects to mop water. It means they are absorbent. They can absorb a substance. Now let's look at waterproof. Materials that seem to push water away, it just ran out of a material. So these days you can see that we have got waterproof phones, we have got waterproof watches. It means these materials will not absorb water. They will not get damaged when they come into contact with water. Now let's look at corrosion resistance. Corrosion simply means rusting. Okay, so corrosion resistance simply means the material in question resists corrosion, or into bracket rust, or UV rays of the what? Sun. Now let's look at heat resistance. There are some materials that are also heat resistant. That is, it will not burn or act as an insulator against what? Heat. Heat resistant. So when you have fire and then you put it there or get close, it will not burn. Yes. Now, conduct electricity. There are some materials that are good conductors of electricity. So we say these materials have the ability to what? Let electricity pass through them when connected to a certain object. So we have got some properties that are also what? Magnetic. So this magnet, we can find one in our various speakers. So a magnet is just a small piece of material that can be attracted by a what? A magnet. So magnetic substance can be attracted by a magnet. And then we can also talk about what? Transparent or transparency. Now, this when an object is transparent, it means we can see through it. Yes. So if you have, we have got some other objects that are translucent. What it means is that light can pass through, but when somebody is at the other side, you will see a figure, but you will not exactly tell what kind of person is it. But if it is a normal glass, the light passes through it, you can see that person. Okay, so there are some another objects in this family can be opaque. They cannot allow light to pass through. So transparent objects allow light to pass through, and objects at the other side can be seen. We have got opaque objects. Opaque objects will not even allow light to pass through. They are not transparent. They are just dark. Then we also have translucent. Now, what it means, translucent will allow light to pass through, but it scattered the light so that the object on the other side, you cannot see it properly. So we have got some windows that have been fixed by what? Transparent glasses. Others are what? Translucent glasses. Okay. Now let's look at the various types of materials. Okay, so you remember all these ones is because of technology, they are able to be processed so that we can use them. So, but in the process of processing them, some will have a positive impact on the environment, others will not have. Okay, now let's look at the type of material. One, we will look at what metals. Metals are ferrous metals contain iron which rusts and is magnetic. So we have got this category of metals that are ferrous, others are what? Non-ferrous. So when we say a metal is ferrous, it means you have got iron component in that material, and is also what? Magnetic. That is, it can be attracted by a magnet. We can look at examples like a steel and then like an iron. Now let's look at non-ferrous metals. Non-ferrous metals are metals that do not contain iron. They do not rust and is not magnetic. Example, we can talk of zinc, we can talk of copper, we can talk of silver. So let's continue. But remember, when we have two or more substances, that two or more metals that are mixed together or combined, then we then get an what? Alloy. So an alloy is simply the combination of two or more metals. Now, when you combine these metals and then we get an alloy, now they will obtain a certain what? Properties. The two metals They will that alloy will have the property of one of the metals and the other property of one of the metals that you have put together. So let's go on. Metals are alloyed to obtain properties which are absent from what? Pure metals. So for example, I have zinc and I have copper. Now, the property of zinc and copper are different, but immediately I mix them together, I do get a different material. Okay, so let's go on. Examples of alloys are brass. What is a brass? When you mix a zinc and copper, then we get a what? A brass. All right. Steel. A steel is made up of what? Carbon, chrome, nickel, and magnesium. So there are some of these utensils or kitchen cooking utensils that you will see that is written what? Stainless steel. Meaning you have got carbon, you have got chrome, you have got nickel, and then you have got what? Magnesium. Now let's look at another examples of a material in the form of alloy. We're looking at bronze. Then the bronze consists of what? Copper and tin. So when you go to any competition or FIFA World Cup or even athletics, so what happens is that the third person they always give that one. The first is gold, the second is silver, and the third is bronze. So when they say this one has won the bronze, it means the medal contains what? Copper and tin. Okay. Now let's go on. Let's look at wood. But remember, these what we just spoke about, the metals. In those days, they couldn't be refined, but because of technology, we are able to what? Process materials and even build different ones. Now let's look at wood. Timber wood is very expensive, and since it is a natural resource, we should not abuse it. There are plantations which are grown with the purpose of what? Supplying wood for wood products and paper. At these plantations, fast-growing trees are planted. The terms hardwood and softwood do not refer to what? The wood, but to the leaves of the trees. Softwood comes from trees with needle-like leaves. The most common types are the pine, the spruce, and the larch. Hardwoods come from broadleaf trees. They include the oak, the ash, the beech from the temperate zones, and a wide variety of what? Tropical hardwoods such as mahogany, maranti, and julito. Not all hardwoods are hard. Yes, there are some hardwoods that are soft. In this case, we have what? The balsam. Now, guys, so when we come to wood as a material, we have got what? Two types of wood. We have got woods that are very hard and woods that are what? Soft. Okay. So they are saying when we say soft wood and hard wood, it does not necessarily mean that the wood is soft or hard. The reference here is how the leaves, the texture of the what? Leaves. Okay, now let's look at manufactured board. And because of technology, we are able to process what? Board. Now, what is a manufactured board? A manufactured board is made by what? Gluing together layers of wood fibers of veneers. So now these days, when you go and cut a wood from the forest, we have got tools or machines that will leave the skin and then process this wood very, very well. But in those days, we couldn't do that because by then technology was not what? Uh, Up to date. So we were using the crude ways of doing things. Okay, let's go on. It is usually made with leftover wood and has many been developed for industrial uses, since it is possible to make many similar shades of what? Board. This type of wood is much cheaper than the real wood, but because the appearance is not as attractive or as the real thing. A veneer is often glued as a what? Top layer. Let's go on types of wood board. We have got plywood, we have got laminated board, we have got chipboard, we have got soft board, we have got fiberboard, and we have got what? Soft board. Okay, so we have got different types of what? Manufactured board. We have the plywood, the laminated board, the chipboard, the soft board, the fiberboard, and the soft board. Let's take note. Okay, so we have got another materials that are called composite materials. Now, how do we get composite materials? When two or more materials with different properties are combined, they form a what? A composite material. The different materials work together to create a new material which has the properties of what? The two or both. The two materials can clearly be distinguished in the what? New composite material. Okay, so take note here. Composite material is the combination of two or more materials to form another material. Now, this other material is now called what? Composite material. Okay, now let's go on. So you can see that these days we have got different cars in this, different car types in the system. Now, what have they done? They have tried to what? Construct a composite material. There are some tires that will tell you that they will, when you buy them, unless in 5 or 10 years time, that they will do what? You will experience wear a tire. Okay, but these days we have got composite materials. Now, another example is a tie. Now, what happens is that modern ties are constructed of layers, which may include rayon cloth, steel bands, and nylon belts, all set in a matrix binder of what? Rubber. So you know there are some belts when you buy some belts and then you use it after 1 week or 2 weeks, then it's gone. But there are some belts that you can buy for 10 years or 5 to 10 years, you cannot what? See that that the belt is still good. So we have got composite materials, and a typical example is the car tires. Then we can also talk of what? Concrete. Yeah, for buildings. Concrete is made from what? Small stones and gravel called aggregate, sharp sand and cement. The small stone and gravel is the reinforcement, and the cement is the matrix that binds it together. Concrete has good strength under compression, but it is weak in tension. It can be made stronger under tension by adding metal rods, wires, mesh, or cables to the composite. The concrete is cast around the rods. This is called reinforced what? Concrete. Yes, for example, now let's see when they are constructing a road, then you get to a bridge. It can either be a bridge or a culvert. A culvert is just a small bridge. Now, because they are cast, they sometimes when they are casting, they use good concrete. And on top of that, they will have to have a frame of what? A structure. Because they know that if they don't put the iron rods or reinforce it, it can break in 2 to 3 years' time. Yes. So these concretes are good. And apart from that, we reinforce them so that we get what? Good materials which will keep long and then to save lives. Now let's look at fiberglasses. Fiberglasses consist of two distinct materials. A fiber of glass called ceramic, which is the reinforcement, and a polymer resin called polyester, which serves as the what? The matrix. The polyester resin polymer alone is brittle and has a lower strength. But when fibers of glasses are embedded in the polymer, it becomes strong, tough, resilient, and flexible. It becomes an ideal material to make boat hulls, swimming pool, linings or cupboards, roofing, and furniture. Okay, so you see fiberglass. All right. So let's continue. All right. Now let's look at packaging. So all these materials are there, and technology assists us to do proper packaging. Now, packaging. Okay. So the modern technology and the discovery and development of different types of material, packaging has improved vastly over the years, especially as far as food and perishable products are concerned. It is now much more convenient and safe. So thanks to modern technology, we are able to what? Develop materials that can package our foods well. Otherwise, some food would have perished or get spoiled. So what is the purpose of what? Packaging. Packaging protects products against dust, moisture, and bacteria. Just imagine when you go and buy milk from the shops, and then the packaging is not right. What is going to happen to your milk or your other food substance? Then you see that the bacteria are going to gain entrance, and at the end of the day, when you eat, you become what? Sick. Okay. Now let's look at another point. Keeps the content together for better transport and handling. You know, there are some products that when you don't package them, transportation is going to be what? Transportation and handling is going to be very, very challenging or difficult. Now, the packaging also gives us information about the product, the instructions, ingredients, and the sell by days. Yeah, so if you go to a shop and you buy an item, now when you check on the package, you get all the information. Sometimes the instructions as to how to use that food item. You even look at the ingredients there and the sell by date. The sell by date simply tells you that it should be written, it's always vividly written. It tells you that these items should be sold by, let's say today is the second, by the fifth or by the fourth. So it means by the fifth, it means you will have to clear it from the store, the grocery store or whatever. Okay. Acts as advertisement to attract attention of possible customers. Okay. You know, there are some package that are designed and they are what? Attractive to possible customers. The way and manner in which it is designed will just attract you. And as you get closer and closer, you try to gain entrance, and then you see whatever that is looking very beautiful. Okay. All right. Now, guys, I want us to look at these questions. Uh, I want you to differentiate. You post your answers in the chat room. You differentiate materials. Question one. Materials are classified into two. List them or name the two materials. List the two types of materials. Okay. And two, what is a composite material? What is a composite material? 3, what is a reinforcement? Reinforcement. Mention 3 properties. Question 4, mention 3 properties of material. Okay. All right. So we go to the chat room. Yes. I said question 1. We are looking at materials are classified into 2. Name them. So, okay, I said materials are divided into 2. What are they? Guys, are you getting me? Yes, that is Mike, that is perfect. Natalie, we have got from the lesson, we have got natural and man-made, or we can say artificial. Okay. All right. That is perfect. That is 2 out of 2. Okay. Now let's go to question 2. What is a composite material? 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 They are sending your answers. What is a composite material? Composite. Composite. What is a composite material? Non-Atlanta, the natural and man-made. That's very good. Excellent. Okay, so guys, I'm seeing that people are getting, yeah. Cesar is getting the answers, is perfectly right. Okay, welcome. It's a type of material that we use 2 or more materials that are different. Zamakutle, you are also perfect. That's perfect. Perfectly correct. All right. Let's go to the next question. Let's go to the next question. Welcome. Let's go to the next question. Okay. All right. Question 3 is saying, what is a reinforcement? What is a reinforcement? You remember we spoke about concrete reinforcement. Now, what is reinforcement? What is reinforcement? So you remember we said some concrete will have to be put, some materials have to be put in the concrete so that it will be very, very strong. Yeah, these days, because of technology, we can do that. Now, how can you explain the term reinforcement? Reinforcement. That's okay. Good. Okay, guys, let's continue. Keeping, I can see that some of you have sent in your answers. Let's go on. Yes, it's when you strengthen a material by adding another substance into it so that it can be what? It can last long, very long. So, for example, if you have a concrete and then you put in steel bars or iron in the concrete, you are what? Reinforcing it. You want to make it very strong. So the process of adding other substances into something to make it very strong is reinforcement. Okay, some of you have got that correct. Yeah, just when you strengthen a material by adding a material that is very, very strong. Okay, guys, I'm impressed. Let's go to the last question. The last question is, mention three properties. Mention three properties of a material. So, in another way, what properties will you consider when you want to what? Buy a material for certain what? Purposes or for a certain project. Okay. Yeah, it must be waterproof. So I said three. So if you give one, is one out of three. So you must give three. So for you to get three out of three, Natalie, you gave one, you are correct, but it's one out of three. So you are left with what? You are short of two. Okay, keep them coming. Yes, refillway, hardness, stiffness, toughness. Perfect. Three out of three. Yeah, wonderful. Let's go on. Yeah, conduct electricity. Yes. Yeah, two out of three. Yes, that's good. Yes, heat resistance. I'm impressed. Magnetic. Yeah. Yes, you can give. Go ahead, Natalie. Go ahead. Well, go ahead. Yes, you can do. Yeah, lithium, that's 2 out of 3. Okay, absorbance, yes, when it is able to absorb. Okay, okay, that's great. All right. Okay, so guys, uh, transparent corrosion, that's correct. All right. Um, so we are going to look at the summary of the lesson, and then we will continue. The time is almost, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, your answers are all correct. Keep them coming. Okay. I'm now going to summarize now. Yeah. Okay. So we have been looking at uh, the positive impact of what? Technology. Now, tomorrow we will be looking at what? Structures, and then we will also be looking at what? The negative impact of what? Technology. You know, when we look at impact of what? Technology processing, we an impact can be positive and it can be what? Negative. So what we have just done today, we were looking at the positive impact of technology processing. So the way we process things these days is much cheaper and easier and far better than what our forefathers were doing. They were struggling. They didn't know what to do. So now you look at the beautiful clothes or items that we are wearing. They were not doing that. They were used. Sometimes they were even using leaves as what as dressers. But because of technology, we are able to process wood. We are able to process wood, and then we are able to use materials and then what reinforce them so that they can be strong. Okay, so that they can be what durable. All right, so we have looked at properties of materials, types of materials. We said naturally or broadly, materials can be classified into two. We can talk of natural materials and artificial materials. We looked at what properties of materials, and then we said they are transparent, they are ductile, they are brittle, they are absorbent, they are waterproof. Okay. All right. So tomorrow we will look at the impact, the negative impact of technology, and then we will continue with what? Structure. Okay. See you tomorrow and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.